Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining everyone who's coming in.
Hi.
Oh, there you are.
How are you?
How are you?
Great. Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday. Thank you so much, Bridgette, for joining my army of artists and for being here today. I really, really appreciate you being here. So, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's so, I really enjoyed our conversation recently, and I can't wait to talk with you more.
I know I'm super excited for our possibilities in the future, but also you bring a fresh new thing into this conversations that we have every Saturday, and I'm super excited to learn all about you and how you're helping really the art world in general, but artists and how you have their best interests at heart, and it's not. Very easy to find. So I am just so excited to get to know you more and have all of our people get to know you. And hopefully, you can start by, why don't we start from the beginning, Stephanie? Tell
Sure.
us where you are and where you grew up, and tell us a little bit about your childhood years.
That sounds great. So, so I have a gallery in Philadelphia that many people know, and I've had that open since 2001. And I have an office as well in Orlando, where my husband is based and my family. So I go back and forth as much as I need to between Orlando, Florida, and Philadelphia, where my gallery is. And I have a staff there that uh, takes care of a lot of stuff for me. And in 2017, I started doing a lot of remote online sales that kind of and handling my business in a way that had me very well prepared for
Did
what.
you know COVID was coming?
No, and I could talk about that later. Sometimes people need to really start analyzing what's happening and read the results going on in their business to make decisions and navigate. And I've been someone that I have an intuitive sense of business, so I've often been able to navigate and be ahead of stuff and understand how to keep growing in different times of challenges. So I'll put that over to the side. But um, uh, Sandra and I were talking yesterday about my first book that I wrote called The Art Cure. It's a book about my life. It's my life story and how I got into the arts. I had a rough childhood. I grew up in Jersey City, New Jersey, in an inner city. Um, my mom, my birth mother, pretty much abandoned me and my five siblings. She had drug and alcohol issues, and we were in and out of foster care from when I was an infant. So eventually, I ended up in a foster home, and the couple that brought me and my two sisters in ended up falling in love with us. They had three boys. They wanted girls in their life, so they were foster parents. So we came as a temporary. It was supposed to be a temporary stay, and we went back and forth with them several times, in and out of their home, back to our birth mother, back to them. And then finally, they said, this is going to destroy their life, and we need to make the move to adopt them. So we were very excited for that opportunity. So um, when I was 9 years old, I was adopted. And I started school just right before then, and started learning how to I think I've told people I didn't learn how to read until I was 7 years old. So I was really far behind academically, but I was a very creative person. Um, and my adopted parents had a farm. My dad's hobby was farming. So we had a full-fledged farm with horses, chickens, cattle, sheep. And so we got to be outside in nature quite a bit. And I found that whole experience really incredible for me as a young girl. I really resonated with being in nature and being around animals. And we had a lot of work to do, a lot of chores. So that's where my work ethic started to develop. Um, and I love learning. So I loved school, and I loved just learning how to read and all the stuff that I was doing at that point in my life. Um, Flash forward, so academics was always hard for me, and I always gravitated towards making art. I was someone that grew up literally in an apartment building for the first 9 years of my life with nothing around me. We had a mattress on the floor. There was one couch. There was no furniture. I didn't have any toys. There was a vacuum cleaner. And I remember there was an ice cube tray. So in the freezer, that was it. The fridge and freezer were totally empty. So that's kind of the situation I was in. So I always had to create something from nothing. And so I was very creative mentally. I would make up mind games. And so that really carried into early childhood, and then going through school. And then I decided I really loved making art. I loved all the processes. So I studied art quite a bit in high school, and then decided I wanted to be an art major when I went to college. My parents were not happy about that. I remember my mom cried, and she was like, oh, and I literally remember them saying, you're going to be a starving artist. You can't do this. You came from poverty. Do you want to go back into poverty? And they were really trying to scare me away from being in the arts. And there was nothing else I liked doing more at that time than learning about art and art history and making art. So I decided to be a double major at Bucknell University in art history and studio art.
So you went with your heart.
I did. I followed my authentic path. They thought, you should go into teaching, you should be in science. Bucknell was a business and engineering school. They thought that would be better suited for a career for me. However, they also said, you have to get a job. You have to, and I started working at a younger age. I was, my early teens. I was babysitting and working.
Well, you were working in the farm since you were 9 years old. So that's your work ethic.
Yeah.
I think you started super young, and so you didn't know anything else but to work, probably.
Exactly. And you know what, I found it really meditative, and I like having a task to do and then accomplishing the task. Do you remember those little pillows and rugs that you can make the hook?
Yes, of course.
The
ones that you were just like, you would hook them and then, yeah. I love them.
With making those, I would literally sit in my room for hours and just
Me too.
Yeah. So that's the artist in me, and the ability to really just meditate and do something and enjoy the process and enjoy the finished work of art. So I had to get a job in college, and I ended up working, and I talk about all of this in my book because I wanted people to know my early childhood, how I got into the arts in college, what I did after that, and how I came into the industry. So essentially I was working at the gallery at Bucknell for 3 years, and also working in their theater department doing publicity. So I literally learned how to create a gallery exhibition, how to give tours, how to organize inventory, and all the stuff that I did at the gallery.
So everything that you didn't learn at the school, you learned after. And so it was like it was almost like hands-on learning as you were going.
Yeah, and then the publicity was really fun because I had to make posters, and I had to sell tickets, and I had to get people there. I had to write press releases. I had to do window displays for the theater. So they put me in charge of all of it. So I was getting paid really well in college doing these two jobs, and I literally came out with a great understanding of how to promote a show and how to put it together. And then, so that started my career, and I ended up working in New York City for a gallery there. I took a detour and went to Asia for 2.5 years. And
where?
I was in Taiwan, and what was supposed to be a 1-year venture ended up to be a 2.5-year project. I met a couple, and I wanted to travel at that point. So I went there to really travel through Asia, which I got to do. And I met a couple, and they loved me, and they loved my background in art, and they wanted to open a school in southern Taiwan and have it be focused around creativity and art, but through while also learning English. So I created this program for them. I loved them and I loved the area and I loved the students. So I ended up staying an extra year and a half to do that. So
Wow, that's
yeah,
incredible.
yeah, I met some wonderful people, and that experience really showed me how isolated I had grown up between the city life, like living in this tenement, and then moving to a farm, which was also somewhat isolated, and then going to New York, which was overwhelming, and then literally a year later going to Taiwan, which was humongous, but it blew open in my mind cultural boundaries, and I really had a sense of the privilege that I had growing up. I was working in some of the area was a little bit more poor. People were living in houses with dirt floors, but they would have a TV on the wall. So they were interested in American culture. So they were fascinated with me. But that really showed me that there's so much outside of your worldview.
Yes, yes. I mean, I come from Mexico City, as you know, and so it's a third world country. And so when when you just, when you move and you see, and there's so much world, and you have to be street smarts when you never probably grew up with that. You had to, now you're in a different place where you need to just know how to behave, how to learn their culture, their traditions, to respect others.
Yeah, I learned so
Right.
much, including how to use chopsticks properly. Lesson in one of my first dinners there. They gave me a whole fish set of chopsticks and told me to eat my dinner. I was like, oh my God, how do I even use these? So that was really awesome. But I learned so much about Asian culture, how wonderful the people are, and also about myself. And that really opened up more desire to learn more about the world, um, and also a desire to keep traveling. And I just remember having the sensibility that at some point I was really going to be locked into a job, locked into where I was living, and that, if I was going to explore, now was the time. I was in my early 20s. So after Asia, I ended up going to San Francisco, and I was there for almost 2 years. And I worked in an architectural firm. I was a project manager, and I got to work with their interior designers and help them with art placement. And that really fostered my understanding of design, architecture, and how designers, interior designers, and architects can really come together with a client. So my gallery business does quite a bit of that for clients, but I learned that way back when I was working and living in San Francisco. And then I came home to see my family for a weekend, and I realized how much I missed everyone. So I had been gone almost 5 years. So I realized it was time to come home. They were happy. So I
Were
decided.
you coming home to New York or coming home to Philly, or where were you at this point?
So I had some friends in Philadelphia, and I decided I had done the Zoo York. It was too crazy for me, and so it's like, well, I want to be in a city. I want to be in an urban place. What's urban but not too urban? And it was either going to be the DC area or Philadelphia. And I had friends in Philadelphia. So I decided, I took a weekend trip there, loved it. I loved, there's this blue collar mentality in Philadelphia that I really connect with, because that's my core and my background. And so um, I'm someone that loves history. And as you know, the Constitution was signed in Philadelphia. We have the Liberty Bell. We have
Your
uh,
gallery is in the historical district.
yeah, some of the original buildings, like the Betsy Ross House. So I love history, and everything felt like the right thing for me to do. So I ended up coming to Philadelphia. I learned pretty quickly that there wasn't much of a gallery scene at that time. This was in 1999, but I could feel an energy and things were really shifting. A couple of artist cooperative spaces were opening. I was volunteering for a nonprofit there. Um, And I had a great resume at that point. And I put it out to a couple of galleries, and I immediately got called in for interviews, and I was offered 2 jobs.
But
Um,
back off for a second. Did you apply for an MBA?
no, I didn't apply for an MBA, but I was trying to get a job first, and then my plan was to go to grad school for painting.
That's
Um,
what I thought.
yes, um, I I that was in the back of my mind. I decided to take a job at a startup gallery. And the 2 women that were opening it worked in corporate America, and they weren't really going to be there Monday through Friday. So they wanted me to really help them. They didn't have a background in gallery work. They just knew what they wanted to show.
Mm-hmm.
They loved art. So I really helped them put their business model together, some of it, and really manage the space. And that was more of an opportunity for me than the other gallery, which was a blue chip gallery that I felt like I had already worked in that experience. Um, so I was doing that part time. And I then started my journey to go to grad school. And at the same time, I needed to make more money, and I was really not paying my bills, and I was still racking up debt. I think, gosh, if I found a pay stub from 1999, I probably would cry right now, because after taxes, I was making $6 to $8 an hour. And this is going from, I had jobs in my teens and 20s where I was getting paid 20, 30, $40 an hour. So for me to be in the career that I wanted to be in, the area that I'm passionate about at that time, with the resume I had, getting paid $6 to $8 an hour was really humiliating for me. And my parents they were pissed. They were like, this is not going in the direction you said it was going to be going in. So I had a lot of pressure, and I was like, okay, it's time to go to grad school. It's time to make more money. And so I also started uh, curating shows, and the gallery owners had an issue with it. So they basically said, you can't curate shows with your name, use your name. You have,
Attached to it, yeah.
and I'm like, well, no, I can't use your name, because what you're doing is very different from what I'm doing, and I don't want any confusion. And so we started to have a parting of ways where they were like, it's all or nothing. And I was like, well, okay. So I decided to kind of go out on my own with curating. And then I started doing art consulting out of my apartment. And I got a couple.
How do you even start that? Do you start calling people? Do you start, like, did you know people at this point where you can just like say, okay, I'm going to start this from my apartment? I mean, it's not an easy, it's a gutsy move.
So I knew a lot of artists. So I was like, I have the art and I have the artists I like. And I was like, I need the physical art. So I started gathering works of art. They were coming into my apartment. Uh, and I can tell you about the first sale I made on my own, which was amazing for me. I was taking a portfolio of watercolors to a framer to get framed to put on my apartment wall. The cab driver that was taking me to the framer asked me what I was doing, and I told him I'm an art consultant. I'm starting this project, and he said, "Oh, my wife and I collect art. You know, nothing too. We don't spend a lot of money, but we buy if we like it." And he said, What's in the portfolio?" And I told him, and he was like, "Well, can I take a look at it when we get to the framer?" And I
Right.
said,
Yeah.
"Sure, I'll give you a peek." It turns out they were landscapes by a Philadelphia artist, Kevin Jones. He loved them. And then it was like, well, how much are they? And how much is the framing? So he and his wife ended up purchasing several works of art and getting them framed. And that happened in one day. So that was literally
Wow.
the first day on my own. A couple days after that, someone mentioned that a local business was potentially looking for some art, that I should go check it out. It was the Capitol Grill on Broad Street. It was under construction. And I was like, I'm just going to go over there. So I walked in. And I ended up meeting the project manager, and I told him what I did. And I said, I heard you need art. And he said, actually, we do. We're looking for things in particular. So do you think you could help us? And I said, sure. So that was client number two, project number two. So it was really starting to energetic go in
Yeah.
my.
Organically, it feels like it was just like you didn't have to push yourself into it. It kind of just was an organic way
Yeah,
of, right? The stars were aligning for you.
they were aligning, but I will say that I'm a very proactive person. So one of my things is to talk to everyone around me, get to know everyone around me. And this is good for artists to know because some of them are a little bit shy and they don't want to talk to people. And my whole thing is I love being around people. So if I'm around you, and this is because I love knowing all about the other person. Tell me about what you do. Like, tell me, probably what you love about interviewing people. That's what I love about connecting with people overall.
100%.
So, the cab driver, most people, they get in, they sit back. I get into a cab or an elevator or anywhere, and I immediately start talking to the person and people around me. And if someone gives me a tip or an idea, I follow it. So that's what I was doing. And that was really bringing what I needed to me at that time and showing me you're on the right path. It's happening. At the same time, I had applied to grad school. I got into University of Pennsylvania. I went to the first week of classes thinking I'm going to do this art consulting gallery thing out of my apartment, and I'm going to go to grad school and get my MFA at the same time. And after the first week, I had, I don't know, 4 classes and all the syllabuses for the week. I was pouring through the work thinking, oh my God, how am I going to do all this? Like, I don't have money. And I had money to go to grad school that an aunt of mine had given me in her will because I took care of her for one summer. She had given me $30,000 that I was able to have once I turned 25. So I had intended to use that for grad school, which would have paid for maybe almost 1 year, not fully. So I
And then we know what happened.
yeah, so I went for the first week and then I was like, I can't do it. And I went to talk to the admissions office and I said, hey, I think I'm making a mistake. What happens if I defer for a year? Can I do that? And they said, yeah, we can work something out. So in my mind, I was like, I'm going to do the art consulting thing for 1 year. And if it goes well and I love it, I'll keep doing it. And if it doesn't go well, then my fallback will be grad school and I still have a year to decide. So that was kind of what happened. And then literally in a couple months, I had more clients through consulting. Through being in that neighborhood, found a really interesting space at 7th and Walnut. It was in a very old 1700s historic building. It was totally boarded up. There was a tiny for rent sign on top of the building. You could barely see it. And I remember thinking, there's something about this space that's calling me. And I remember calling the number and I said, do you have a space for rent in this building? And the company that was managing it said, yeah, it's kind of like a storage room. And they've been using it to store equipment for, I don't know, the last 10 years since the owner passed away. And I said, well, is it for rent? And they said, yeah. And they said, for the right person. And I said, okay. And they said, well, what are you thinking about doing? And I said, I'm thinking about opening an art gallery. And the guy went quiet and he's like, okay. And he said, we've had a lot of people ask to rent this space, and the owners, the owner passed away, gave the building to her son, who was living in Colorado, and they didn't want anyone like doing anything too crazy, a restaurant, or they had a dentist that wanted to be in there. They didn't want any massive construction, and it turns out the mom that had owned the building was an avid art collector. There was art everywhere, all over the
It was
building.
meant to be.
Yeah. And that's why the guy paused, and he said, let me make a call and let me call you back. And if I get a green light, I'll show you the space. So they were like, yeah, if she wants to open an art gallery, she can be in there. They said no to everyone. And so literally I went in, I could visualize what it could be. It was about 650 square feet of space. And they brought me in, and I
I don't know
okay.
what happened. That was
Um,
so weird. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So basically, I had enough money for the deposits that they needed, and I calculated like bare bones. I had enough for about 6 months. I could be in, but the lease was for 1 year. And I said to the manager, I was like, what happens if I can't pay after 6 months? And he's like, you're going to get hit with a fine and a lease default, and you're going to owe the rest of the lease. So, um, you know,
Wow. That was a big risk.
then he put, and I was like, no, 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 I got it. I got it. So, um, yeah, in hindsight, it was pretty, there were a lot of things I did where looking back, I was like, I was a little crazy. I didn't know what I didn't know yet. So that was in, I moved in, I started moving in March of uh, 20,
2001.
yes. And then I decided, you know, every day that I was in there that it wasn't set up as a gallery, I was losing money. So like, I have to get open. So my goal was to open up by mid-May of that year, and then have an official June 1st launch. Um, so we basically, I did a lot of the work myself. I didn't have a car in Philly. I had a bicycle. I put a milk crate on the front of the bike. I
Oh
was
my God.
biking 7 miles to Home Depot, and I didn't have money for cabs. And I didn't know enough people to borrow a van or do anything. So I was like, the only thing I could figure out was riding my bike. So I literally was going back and forth to Home Depot, picking up gallons of paint, spackle, toolkits. I found
This
track.
shows when there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, I found
And
the.
you just made it whatever you could, and you just worked really hard,
Yeah,
and you just put yourself out there. And I mean, I think, looking back now to look for yourself and see yourself going to Home Depot on a bike and see what you have created in the past 20 years, it must feel very satisfying.
yeah, it was. I remember biking back. I had all these boxes of track lights on my bike, and I was trying to stay balanced, and it was intense. And I remember I did that for 2 months, and I had my program ready to go. And I remember the first artist that I was going to sign on, she actually at the same time had gotten another offer from another gallery in Philadelphia. I think they found out that she had another offer on the table. So they accelerated their offer, and they had been around a few years longer than me, and they had a beautiful gallery. And I was like, listen, you need to sign on with me. Like, I love your work and I'm committed. And she's like, well, let me come see the space. And I was like, okay, well, just wait until I have it ready, you know? So, and I remember she walked in, and I remember seeing her face just like not happy in my ass. The walls were great. The lighting was great, but it was small. It was a tiny gallery. It was 650 square feet of space. I didn't have nice flooring. It was office carpeting. There were just a lot of wonky things, but behind it was a passionate person. And I remember her going outside with her husband, and the window was open, and I could hear them talking. They didn't know I could hear them. She's like, this is not what I thought. This is not what I wanted. She's like, I think I need to go with the other gallery. And he's like, listen, you know, she's done a lot for you already. You have no idea what the other person's going to do for you. Try it out for a year, see how it goes. And then if it's not going well, just go with the other gallery. And so she made her decision. Her husband helped her, and she was basing it on the aesthetics of my space, and you know, me being a new gallery owner. So I had a lot of things starting out like that. She signed on with me. The rest is history. She's done some incredible work and projects with me, and we've had a lot of success. And it took me some time, but in 2007, I started doing a renovation project, and I slowly started working on the space. I needed more money, but I totally regutted the building. I ended up buying my building.
Oh,
So
you did? Wow, good
that
for you.
was 2001. I opened to the public June, and if you remember, what happened a couple months later was 9/11. And the world stopped, kind of like what just happened in the last year. Literally, it felt like that because we were under terrorist attacks. My neighborhood was a hot point for the terrorists because it was a historical area. So literally, 3 months into my venture, everything shut down, and I started to panic a little bit inside. And I just said, you know what, I'm going to put my head down. I'm just going to keep working. I'm going to believe in it. And I know I'll make it through this. So, you know, I think I sold my opening show. I sold nothing that night. We had several hundred people come through. Nothing sold. Like, don't panic. Just keep working. Everyone leaves Philadelphia for the summer. They all go to the beach, and I was a young new gallery owner, but things started happening, and I just kept really pushing and working hard. And even after 9/11, I remember that month I sold one $400 print. That was it. And the guy that bought it, I know he bought it because he felt sorry for me. I'm sure he felt you got to buy this.
Desperation, yes.
Yes. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to get $200 from this print, and I'm going to pay the electric bill because I don't want the lights to go out, and I'm going to pay the rent, and I'm going to pay the rest out of my savings. And so it was a hard time. And my goal was to get through the first year and not default on my rent and just get through. And I did, and I barely squeaked through. And then year two, that was the next year, I signed another 1-year lease. And I'm like, okay, get through this year. And that's literally how I started building all of it. And so things really started snowballing probably in year three. And then I started getting some really interesting press that helped kind of bring more awareness to the gallery. I was featured on Anderson Cooper. Did an interview with me on his program. He was doing a program called On the Rise, and one of his producers had seen an article about me, and they loved the story, so they reached out to me to feature me, and that was huge for me. I got a lot of interest in the program. I was invited to New York to meet with a bunch of people and be part of an event. And all the CNN people were there, and I got to basically do a pop-up installation of art in the Time Warner building for one night. And I met some incredible people in New York. So that was in 2005. That was a big year. And then, you know, I could say
you, at that point in 2005, you connect with all this new community, new people. You're in New York, and now you're, you know, I mean, that must have felt like, okay, I'm doing something right.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I think it's really easy to, I think a lot of creative people get sidetracked or depressed. And I'm someone that is not going to give up unless I know, like, okay, it's time to give up. And I knew I had to fight through. There was a lot against me. My age at first, I was 26 when I started. I looked younger than my age. So people never thought I was the gallery.
Yeah.
They thought I was the administrative assistant because of how young I looked. People would tease me about it all the time. Someone even joked to see my license to make sure I'm actually Bridgette. I'm like, And, you know, I had a lot of people making comments, and then people were saying stuff to me early on, like, you're too young to be a gallery owner. No one buys abstract painting in Philadelphia. They buy figurative and landscape art. Everyone wants the work coming out of PAFA or this type of art. You're not going to do well. And then I would hear, do you know how many galleries close after the first year? Do you know it takes about 5 to 8 years to really get established? Are you sure you can handle this? People are really trying to, and I heard it every day. It wasn't once in a while. It was someone would
It
come in.
sounds very condescending.
Yeah,
And and we had a conversation. I think that, you know, there's also this conversation, side conversation on for artists to join galleries. It's you have to have a very good relationship with your galleries. They have to have your best interests at heart to represent you, to really have your, you know, have your back in every way, shape, or form. And you come across as someone that really cares for the artist and is going to go to the next level to represent that artist. And so I think that you have a unique situation where you're not this because people were condescending to you. I think that you don't carry that, and then now you know better, and so you're not condescending to artists, because sometimes I feel like artists feel that you know, the galleries make them not feel great.
yeah,
You know, they feel like they're being used, and not, I'm not every gallery obviously, but you know, it can happen.
yeah. I almost left the industry after my first gallery job in New York in 1996. I was working at a top gallery. I was the lead person. Basically, when the elevator doors would open, whoever was coming in, I was going to handle them. And then I was also taking care of the artist and fielding all the artist phone calls. And the environment was really toxic. The best part for me was always the time I spent with the artist, doing a tour of their work in the show, learning about their processes, getting to be in their studio with them. That was always my happy place. But what started to happen was the gallery was going bankrupt and I didn't know it. And I was getting calls from the artist saying, hey, Bridgette, I haven't been paid for the sale in 6 months. Hey, when's that check coming? Or, you know what, this was supposed to happen and it's not happening. And I was the fall person. And I remember thinking, what is going on? And so in my mind at that time, I started formulating already my own business plan of, if I were doing this, the day I get paid is the day the artist gets paid. You have to run a financially responsible business so that you're not going bankrupt. You don't have an art gallery if you don't have art. You don't have art unless you have artists. So it was all very clear to me that the foundation of this business was not just the gallery owner and their name, but the artist and the artwork. So, and I knew how much some of them had to pay for shipping and materials. So I felt a sense of loyalty and responsibility, and it started to create a lot of anxiety for me. I actually was going home, not sleeping at night at that time, thinking, God, I can't do this. This is like, I wasn't hired to do this. I'm basically getting these calls every day. So, and then I had some experiences. I was young, but there were lots of wealthy people coming in. I felt a real disconnect with the world that they were in and how they were shopping for and buying art. And my understanding of, in my mind at that time, in my mid-20s, why art is made, and I had a lot of principles around it. And I felt that at the time, people buying art for investment or people buying it to match a couch color, I felt really disgusted by it. And I just didn't understand it yet. And so all of those things were saying, I was saying, I'm not in the right place. This is not who I am. I can't do this. So a year and I quit. And that's when I went to Asia. And I was like, I'm going to travel and do other things and then see if I come back to this. And so that,
So
that.
you came back renewed with your own rules, with your own ways, by helping artists, by, you know, just creating a whole environment that was positive, was not snobbish per se, was very, I think that your language and communication with the artist and the understanding of the artwork of the artist, then it can translate into a sale of a collector, because you know the artist, you know their language, you know their process, and you get invested in their work. And I think that differentiates you from others, that they're really truly invested in the best for truly to bring up the artist. And so I think
Yeah,
that's a huge, huge difference.
I think, Sandra, what I've experienced from knowing a lot of gallery owners is that everyone comes into owning a gallery for different reasons and different intentions. Um, the best art dealers try to run it as a business, and treat it as a business. And it's not about just putting pretty art up on the walls, hoping someone's going to walk in and maybe buy something, and almost like osmosis. Um, there's a lot of people that they just think, well, if I hang a good show or if this art is good, it will sell itself. And I even think that mindset has crept into how artists think about their business. Well, if it's really good, it's going to sell. If I'm a really good artist, I'm going to get picked up by a gallery. And that all may be well and true, and you might have that experience, but you actually have to work on this stuff. To have success as an artist and an art gallery owner, you have to market, you have to sell, you have to build a solid brand, you have to have a vision, you have to curate shows that are consistent. Someone recently told me that there was a gallery that was the best gallery in Philadelphia, and I'm like, I guess best is it's subjective, and for me, I have an idea of what the best is. And when I'm thinking about something, I know in my mind what the best is. And I have a very high level, but not everyone is operating at a higher standard for how they're doing things. So my thing with artists and with business owners is to, have a business model, have a business plan, have a vision, have goals. Know exactly why you're doing it and what you want to get out of it. Have a vision for the types of people you want to work with. Then go out and start connecting and doing the work to make that happen.
Yeah. So someone just said that Bridgette, as an artist who went into a gallery's position, so like your language shows that, of course, because you were an artist before being a gallerist. And so,
You know what though, Sandra, I really had a moment with myself where I had spent years working with really good artists in New York and in other places. And I was like, I'm creative, but I know in my deep heart, I don't have the some of the more technical aspects. I know they can be developed, but I didn't have that. And I honestly didn't have the desire and the will to develop them. And so I knew that I love
you
business.
recognized it. Yeah.
And I'm like, I put it aside. And people have asked me, well, don't you regret? I'm like, no. I'm like, at some point in my career, if I ever wanted to make art, I could do that. But the problem for me now is I've worked with some of the best artists in our culture. So, and I know how many years it's taken them to get to that point. I wouldn't want to make art because I would want it to be at the best level, and I wouldn't want to mess around with it. That's kind of my personality. I take it very seriously. So I'm very happy with where I landed. And my gallery now, it's been 21 years, and I've sold art at every level. I started out selling $300, $400, $2,000 works of art. And that grew every year. And there came a point where I wanted to get to the next level with artists I was representing and with sales, and really expanding what was possible sales wise. And so I really started going for the reach sales, 50,000, 100,000, 200,000. I started going for the larger projects. I set a goal a couple years ago to do a $1 million public art project. I did it.
And you did it.
I did it. And then very quickly after, got another just under $1 million project. And I've set goals with my artists around what do you want, you know, how much do you want to make, what types of projects do you want to do. And through that process, I've really been able to pretty much create most of what I've wanted to do.
So Bridgette, tell me a little bit about Art MBA and your program, and how do you help artists? Tell us a little bit about that.
Awesome. And you guys, I was telling Sandra that probably around 2015, I started getting a little bit bored. I was like, I love this, and I know how to do it really well, but is this all I'm going to do for the rest of my life and my career? Like, there's got to be more. And I heard this little voice say, write a book, tell your story. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, write a book. So I decided, that took a couple years. The Art Cure came out in 2017. That year, I decided to do my first workshop for artists in my gallery. I had 55 artists attend, and that ignited a passion for teaching artists how to run the business side of their careers. That quickly led me to write another book called The Modern Artist Way. And I wrote a mini business curriculum for artists. It doesn't take very long to read this book, and it's very actionable. There are steps at the end of each chapter on what you can do. And then I realized not everyone wants to sit down and read a book and do the work. They need a community. They need someone, they need a live coach. They need someone pushing them. So I decided to write a curriculum called Art MBA. And I thought about it from a foundational point. What did I didn't know starting out? What did I not know? What could I not find out from anyone in the industry that I had to learn from other people in other industries and apply to the arts? And I wrote a 12-month curriculum, and I created a course book for it. And that launched right when COVID was hitting, which was pretty amazing. And then a lot of the students were eager for the entire program all at once. So I went back in and I created another 53 videos. So I expanded it and created a 100-page workbook. And we launched that a couple months ago, and it's called Art MBA All Access. And that also launched with this book called Art MBA Mindset. I have to share with you that one of the things I love is being in front of someone that is having a challenge in their career, hearing exactly what the challenge is. And then
you're a problem-solving person. That's why.
I love solving problems, and I realize I love solving business problems and coaching them and giving them the information to then go and try it and then get a result. And there's nothing more exciting for them, because I get these emails saying, oh my God, I did this and this happened. And I get emails every day from Art MBA students. So the curriculum is about 63 videos. There's a 100-page workbook. I have a private Facebook community for the students, and I'm in there monthly coaching, live coaching, and doing live Q&As. And at this point, we have about 90 hours of teaching content that I've recorded in there. So that's all part of the
Art MBA.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact,
amazing.
If you guys go over to my Instagram feed, Bridgette Mayer _Art MBA, I'm doing a free webinar on Wednesday, June 16th in the evening. And I'm going to teach on money, mindset, marketing, and sales. And
amazing.
I had someone that was in the last webinar, and she did one of the exercises I taught. I call it the low-hanging fruit exercise. And part of it is having this awareness that there are people in your life that want to buy art from you. I had a couple things happen in my career where I realized I'm not asking people to buy art from me. I'm assuming that they're going to show up and just buy. And so I flipped it, and that's how my sales grew. I started really actively approaching people and getting results. So I taught this lesson. She asked, who in my life do I think has always wanted to buy art, but I've never asked? She ended up calling 2 people. The one gentleman said, what took you so long? I've been waiting for the invitation to buy your art. I love
Oh
this.
my goodness.
She sold a $10,000 painting. She emailed me a week later saying, your webinar changed my life. And I just want to share with you that I did what you taught. I tried it, and this is what happened.
And I can testify, I have friends that are in your program, and their sales have doubled or tripled sometimes. And some of my Army of Artists you represent. And please go to Bridgette and find out more about her program. And we have a gift from you.
Yeah.
So we're giving bundles of her books today, and the sales will go to Feeding America. So you would get 3 books for $60. If you want this bundle for $60, please DM me or Bridgette. You make the donation straight to Feeding America. We will be helping a lot of people. And Bridgette, thank you so much for your generosity on giving this books and bundles. And
I love what you're doing. It's so, I mean, it speaks to my heart because I feel like generosity and giving back creates more abundance in your life.
yes, I totally agree. And I think we're going to have to do a part 2, Stephanie, because we didn't really talk much about tips for artists on how to approach galleries. And I think we have like 7 more minutes. And I think if we can dive in just a bit into doing that, that'd be fantastic.
So I, I've owned my gallery now for 21 years. I've sat on numerous committees with reviewing portfolios, during shows for organizations. I just recently did a call to art for a private client. We had over 350 applicants come in for a public sculpture garden. Most of them were rejected. And so I've been on the side of reviewing and either approving or accepting. And I have a gallerist perspective on how to get your artwork in front of gallery owners. So I was just coaching an artist with this yesterday, Sandra. Believe it or not, some artists out there just start with horrible images. And this artist is super talented. I was working on a presentation to sell her art, and I looked at her images. I'm like, these are horrible. I'm working to sell a $15,000 piece, and the paper is all rippled and shadowy. And I'm like, I can't show this to a museum. I'm not, my name's now included in this. So my number one tip for artists is to make sure that your images are the best images that they can be. It sounds really pretty simple, but she in her mind thought, oh, well, these were a commercial photographer, but not an art photographer. And I had to explain to her, the lighting was off, there were shadows, you didn't crop them properly. We'd have to do a lot of Photoshop to actually get these working for us. And I'm not going to do that at this point in my career. You need to take care of this. So if some of you are shooting your own art, or if you're having a non-art photographer, maybe a family member shoot them, you need to make sure that and it's expensive. And I know that's why a lot of artists don't have the money to go out and get 10 or 15 works photographed, but find someone, do a trade, and make your images the best that they can be. The other thing that I've seen is that people just don't know how to format a proper gallery letter. They don't know how to format and put together the materials in the current professional standard. In my Art MBA program, I have I have about 12 videos that cover how to research the right galleries, how to know if it's the right gallery for you, And then I give templates on how to write the letter, how to put together a proper resume, what materials should go in a packet, how to email people, how to call people, how to send materials. So that's covered over 12 videos. I've used this process with many artists that I've coached, and many artists in the program have used it for great success in getting galleries. So I know it works. And I know it works because it's exactly what a top gallery would want to see if someone was taking the time to send them materials. So, you know, and I think the other thing I've seen is when artists are attempting to connect with a gallery, they're not always finding the right gallery for them.
It needs to be a right fit, and you need to research, you know, what that gallery represents. Who are the other artists that they represent? Is this,
Yeah.
you know, something that you could see your art in it? Why do you find yourself that you want your art in it? Like, you have to do a little bit of research, and you have to do your work. Like you said, it won't fall in your lap. You kind of have to really go out there and get your bicycle, uh, like you did, and kind of just pedal forward and work hard.
Yeah, and I think I've told people, to me, it's like matchmaking. Like, let's say you're a vegetarian and you know that you want to meet someone that doesn't eat meat that's a vegetarian. That's your standard. So galleries have their own standards of who they're looking to meet and who they don't want to meet. So if you're a vegetarian trying to be with a meat eater, it's not going to work if that person doesn't want that to work. So that's where doing your research and finding the right galleries that you believe you're compatible with. A lot of times people are just like, well, I'm just going to throw it out there and see if it sticks. Don't waste your time. Don't waste their time unless you have some good referral where someone's telling you to do it, or they have a connection with that gallery and you're getting an intro. You know, don't waste your time. So I love this whole process because I feel like there's so many amazing galleries right now in the United States.
And artists don't know how to approach. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm talking about myself too. You know, I get nervous. You know, I I choke a little bit, and I think that knowing the right way and the right approach it lessens that anxiety that creates for artists.
I mean, one of the reasons I created Art MBA is because when I was trying to get the information that I needed to grow my business, no one would help me. And I know so many artists that don't know how to get a gallery, how to put together the packets, how to market their art, how to sell their art, how to network as an
That's
artist.
why we're coming to you, Bridgette.
That's
And everyone is, so just quickly, where can we find you? We'll have a part two. Stephanie and I will come back and we'll let you know where to find us again. But where do we find you?
so my website, bridgettemeyer.com.
Okay.
All my Art MBA stuff is up there. And then on Instagram, we have a lot of information at Bridgette Mayer _Art MBA. I also have a YouTube page where I've put up a ton of videos. So if you look up my name, Bridgette Mayer, on YouTube, you'll see my page. And if you click it and follow it, you'll get an update when we put up new videos.
Perfect.
I have 5 hours of webinars that we're about to put up there around March.
Amazing. We got to go, unfortunately. Show us the 3 books. You guys purchase these books for $60. It all goes to Feeding America. If you want to help and help yourself, please consider buying this today. DM me or Bridgette. Bridgette, thank you so much. We'll be in touch soon. Bye, everyone.